Kim Emerson, our legislative reporter, who always breaks down whatever's happening politically for us in such great terms. And Kim, there's so much going on right now with this ethnic vote scandal and the Dybel report. Can you just kind of summarize what happened yesterday?
Okay, here it is in all its glory. 97 pages of John Dybel and 3 other deputy ministers' work in laying out this ethnic outreach vote scandal. And so what's happened here is he's taken a look at his staff, at the Premier. He's asked questions, 27 different interviews. They've gone through 10,000 documents. And all this was about the Liberal Party using political staff to get information on people, from people, for people, and then forwarding that information on to the Liberal Party. That is absolutely against all of the rules. That's against the Public Service Act. You cannot do that. It's against the code of conduct that the provincial government employees have. Now, the way you look at this, you may not think there is such a thing as a code of conduct, but there is, and 3 people had what they call serious breaches of the Code of Conduct. 2 others had breached the Code of Conduct. Those 3 people are now gone. If you want to look at a body count, Kim Hackstead, the Premier's Deputy Chief of Staff, gone. She resigned a couple of weeks ago when this thing first broke. You also have a guy by the name of Brian Bonney, who's not with the government anymore, hasn't been for a while, but he took 1,100 emails from government accounts, put them into 3 of his own personal accounts as part of this whole deal. And John Yap said, yeah, that's okay. Now, John Yap was the Minister of Multiculturalism. He said, yeah, that's okay because we want to avoid FOI on this Freedom of Information requests. And yesterday, we got one more resignation, and that was a guy by the name of Mike Lee, who was a ministerial assistant to Harry Bloy. He was the Minister of Multiculturalism when this thing first happened, and then he went up and he was with Shirley Bond, but he's now gone as well. So we've got 3 staffers who are no longer with government, and John Yap, who stepped down as Multiculturalism Minister, thought he was going to get reappointed. The Premier thought he was going to get reappointed because Yap claimed that he'd done nothing in this thing, but it turns out he approved a check for $6,800 to a contractor who never had a contract, and he was saying that it was okay to hide all of this stuff so that it couldn't be FOI'd. So he's not coming back to cabinet either.
Okay, so Kim, what does the Premier have to say about these findings? We have a clip of Premier Christy Clark this morning saying, I initiated this investigation. I asked for this to happen. I'm trying to clean up this mess.
Yeah, well, here, let's look at this clip. John Dybel makes it very clear in his report and in our chat with him yesterday, and I'm not allowed to attribute anything to him because our chat was supposed to be off the record just for, not for attribution purposes. What he says is he was only allowed to look at one part of this. He was only allowed to look at political staff. He wasn't allowed to look at caucus. He wasn't allowed to look at cabinet ministers, and he wasn't allowed to look at the Liberal Party. So let's put this in real terms. You buy yourself an old high-mileage beater. You want to take it to the mechanic and get it checked out and get it fixed. So you do that. But your guy only does tune-ups. So you got the thing tuned up and that engine is purring now, but you've got no idea what the transmission is like, no idea what the rear end's like, and no idea what the brakes are like, and you're heading off to the election.
So what happens now?
Well, there's still a possibility a couple of more people could be fired because the Chief of Staff now has to look at the breaches of conduct by the other people that were involved in this. It also goes to the Comptroller General. And the Premier, you also have a clip of the Premier saying that the Liberal Party is going to pay back $70,000. What that is, and she says they'll write another check if they have to, that's for half the salary for this guy, Brian Bonney, who was doing half government work and half party work on the government's dime. He was paid $124,000, so $62,000 of that. That's part of the payment back, and the $6,800 that John Yap approved, that is being paid back as well. So that's where she gets the $70,000. There could be more to come out of this. It should have been an independent investigation that could have looked at everything. In other words, a mechanic who can do everything on your car, but it wasn't. It was one specific area. John Dybel did a nice job of it, but he didn't have the opportunity to do the whole report.
Running up to the election, this is going to be very, very interesting fodder. Kim Emerson, always a pleasure to have you check in from the legislative buildings in Victoria. Thank you for this. I'll get my mouth working. Thank you, Kim. We'll check in with you as we lead up to the election.